Welcome to a podcast capturing the antics of two geeks who talk about video game culture and influence, both old and new, all through chaotic banter and tangential tangents that make no sense. My name is Mask.
Come on, you have Google, and I have an editing station.
This is my pal Red.
For all of you at home, go hydrate right now.
And together we make the Reddmasq Podcast.
This is episode 28. This week on the Reddmasq Podcast, we have yet another wonderful guest here. This is Nathan from the Memory Machine. Nathan, I want to go ahead and hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
My name is Nate, Nate Lockhart. I do a podcast called The Memory Machine, where I talk about all manner of ancient pop culture things, going from, there was a recent episode where we reached all the way back to like the mid-1800s to going up to like 10 years ago, talking about like Flash cartoons.
Ooh.
Yeah, right? Nothing but fun. Pretty exciting topics, good fun stuff. I also do some work with Gaming Alexandria.
Okay.
Which, I don't know if you've heard of them, but they do like a lot of things like magazine scanning, like purchasing of like magazine scans and manuals and that sort of ephemera and scanning that in. They also do things like old type-in games. I don't know if you know what those are. Like old type, like from 80s computer magazines.
Okay, and, so like typing in like the code that you see into the machine, because like we don't have like the floppy infrastructure sort of thing.
Well, you do, but it's just expensive.
True,
it's much cheaper.
Five and a quarters were not cheap.
No, right, exactly. So I do some work with them. Like I'll purchase schematics or whatever from like my interest specifically is with video games from the pre-CPU era. So like the early TTL era of video games, where their schematics are much more important to implementing them for any future platform. I also, one of my other big projects has been, there's this book that I was enamored with that I found when I was like 10 years old.
Okay.
In the LaGrange, Georgia Public Library, when I briefly lived in Georgia. And this book is from 1978. It's called How to Design and Build Your Own Custom TV Games. And what it does is it shows you with the schematics how to build your own video game. And I do mean build, because it is, all the games are based off of TTL logic, digital logic. There's no programming. There's no CPU. There's no computer involved. So, you solder it all together.
Yeah.
And, So, but as far as I knew, there weren't any of those that existed. You know what I mean? Like the builds that were in there, the designs, as far as I knew at the time, and going up to 20 years later, when I finally decided to take on a few of these builds, there had been no builds out there. So I didn't really even know what these things looked like. Well, there's documentation because you have the book, but you don't have any examples. There's no examples to go off of. And except for one, there was one guy who built one very simple game.
Okay.
So I took it upon myself to basically teach myself electronics. So I read the schematics and the book and designed PCBs for the elements needed for the games, and had them manufactured and troubleshooted them, and so I currently have 3 games fully working. There's one that's a game of tag, 2 squares chase after each other, player controlled.
Right, and you don't actually have to like write any logic for this. This is all just the
there's no coding whatsoever.
Yeah,
none.
Wow, very impressive.
Yeah, no coding at all. It's all hardwire, hardwire logic. Yeah, there's that. There's one that's called Stormtrooper Attack, which is a sort of like an early Space Invaders with, Stormtrooper. I mean, they're squares, enemy squares that march down towards the player.
Square troopers.
Interesting.
Now you're just making me think of like the early Magnavox Odyssey sort of system.
It's
that they
exactly
had out there.
like that.
Really?
It's exactly like that.
You have the one square that you can control on screen with like a pitch yaw, and that's it. Like you just have that.
Well, you can add to it because it's modular. So what they do is you first build like a simple horizontal and vertical video generator board.
Okay.
And then from that, you can kind of take like certain divisions of the NTSC television frequency and mix them and combine them through digital logic to create player squares or ball squares or play fields or whatever. But one more quick thing about those games, I did a pinball one, which is kind of dumb, but it works and it's fine. But the Stormtrooper Attack one is very interesting to me because it's a Space Invaders-ish game. It reminds you of Space Invaders, but it came out 4 months before Space Invaders came out in America. And it was done by this guy.
But it was still an idea in Japan, so
it was an idea in Japan, but it was
connections, I'm wondering?
I don't know, because this guy was based in Columbus, Ohio. So like, how would he have ever known? Like, I don't know.
The whole idea of just like who is inspiring who in this case, and that becomes a mystery in and of itself.
Yeah, and unfortunately we'll never know because the man died in 2020.
Wow.
So I'll never get to figure out what the connection was if there was any. But anyway, yeah. So that's everything.
Fantastic, and we're glad to have you here on the show this week.
Thank you very much.
And there's a reason I called you Nathan instead of Nate. It's because my friend Red, his real name is Nate.
Oh my gosh!
I made a joke last week with Matt that I'm going to replace him. Now I can actually make that joke again. Red, how does it feel like to be replaced again?
Feels like I can finally take a vacation.
Again. All right. But yes, we are glad to have you here among our very gamey, geeky sort of community that we have. This week, we are going to kind of dive into a few topics related to fighting games, kind of my analysis of just like pro players, and in terms of just like why people are losing in the latest Marvel vs. Capcom 2 port release, and why that's making news and headlines around the Rolling Stones, for instance.
Putting the fun in refund.
As you know, around 90s arcade games and quarter munchers, yeah, I mean, 2-player games are really keen on that because the first player that wins gets to stay on. The second player that loses, they got to keep paying. And usually that's done in like winner stays on sort of rotations, but importing a beloved game that is Marvel vs. Capcom 2, in the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, the arcade collection to be specific, and everyone online is getting blown up by the Wazzler. Who is the Wazzler but the Michael Jordan of fighting games, aka Justin Wong? I'm not kidding when I say that, by the way. Top fighting game players are actually kind of really good at their craft due to hundreds of hours of practice and just like being surrounded by a lot of the culture of like the arcade systems when they were growing up here. They are at a very steep advantage.
Also, Justin Wong has won Marvel 2 EVO multiple times.
Well, there's that as well. Factors into him being one of the greatest players of all time in terms of fighting game history and legacy. It's not just Marvel. He's won in Street Fighter. He's like been on game shows and such where he's just like been known for playing Tekken and all sorts of other games.
He's the guy who was on the receiving end of the Daigo parry.
Yes, Evo Moment 37. Are you familiar with Evo Moment 37, Nathan?
I am not a huge fighting game person, but even though, I'll say this, even though I'm not a huge fighting game person, I know who that guy is.
There you go, yeah.
You know, like, I'm not a huge fighting game person, and I know who he is, which I think says quite a bit about his talents and the notoriety therein.
In terms of just, like, how the game matches players up against each other, I'm not sure if they changed it or patched it recently, but originally, I mean, everyone starts off from square one when you have a new game, right? Even if the game doesn't know that you are all-time Marvel 2 champion, Justin Wong. So he was getting put up against all sorts of players that are just, like, leagues and leagues below him. But if we want to compare this to numbers, I would say there's a really good resource that Street Fighter 6 had put out there. Their metadata collection tool, they kind of like use Microsoft Azure PlayFab, which is a really nice framework. I studied cloud a little bit in college, but like this framework is specifically for their game segment. But to the players, part of that is that they give all the stats. So, like, Street Fighter 6 itself is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different categories, with an additional 9th for the top level players called Legends. So it goes Legend, Master, Diamond, Platinum, yada yada yada. For the very top players in like Masters 8 through 10, that takes up like less than 1% of like even the player base itself for Street Fighter 6. For Diamond players, it'd be around 17 or so percent of players just find themselves around the 2 highest rankings besides Legend. So Diamond and Master. From my numbers here, and I could be wrong, this is just one way to analyze this. For Diamond players, if you were to put them in a room with like 5 players, one person there would be able to beat them if they were all to play each other. For Masters 8 through 10 players, you will see them win 199 out of 200 games. So in a room of 200 people, they will win against 199 of those people. So with that in mind, we have Justin, who's online and beating literally the pants off everyone, to the point where it becomes ridiculous, and he makes news. He doesn't just make news, he starts styling on people.
Oh
So-
my gosh.
He gets several Steam reviews calling him out by name for dunking on them.
Oh boy.
So
It is amazing.
What a disaster for your if you're the company who's putting that out, Capcom, right? Yeah, boy, that's and you've already got such a great system of divvying up these skill levels with your other fighting games. How did they miss this?
It's just something that happens in the initial stages of a game getting released like this, I would say.
I see.
It's
And
because
the
like
whole-
everyone starts from square one, right? But some of those people that are starting there don't get matched up against the players that they need to.
Some people's Square One started 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's got to be like a better way to at least start off on a better foot.
I would say, maybe if the game were to give you a single player test to determine if you're able to kind of like tussle with some of the other folks, like can you do a Fadoken, for example? You might not be like the rookie rank. Or maybe you can execute these combos in training mode, and then they'll bump you up a few ranks. That sort of thing. So something
even
to
just
help players along, not get in this situation where Michael Jordan is on your 3v3 team and dunking on everybody.
Or even just like a questionnaire at the beginning, like, is this your first time playing fighting games? Have you ever played at a tournament before? You know, like, I mean, I guess you can't guarantee that people will answer these things honestly, but at least
the people
something.
The people who matter would be answering that honestly because they want to be fighting people who are at their level in the first place.
Exactly.
Right. An ELO or ranking system is common to see in most esports. Fighting games are a little more untamed.
Wait a minute. Don't they do that in Street Fighter 6?
Kind of. Street Fighter 6's system requires actually playing 10 matches as a, quote, new challenger, and then you get your rank. That's how Street Fighter 6 handles it.
I thought what it was like when you start, or was it Tekken, where you start and you can start with like a later rank if you want to, and then it will slowly like move you where you need to be.
Right. Yes.
There's some fighting game that tried that. I feel like
it's not coming to mind, unfortunately. I think Guilty Gear Strive had like the tower system where you're put up different floors of towers depending on how well you do in matches. Again, in matches, not outside of that.
Good luck to anyone who gets into heaven in that game.
Oh my goodness, yeah. But yeah, I want to direct everyone's attention to the footage where Justin tweeted out, yes, the Zangief strategy of just like jumping into his opponent constantly. Anyway, I hope we all have the video open because we're getting a lesson in fighting game strategy.
Yeah, you just button mash, right?
So yeah,
I mean, that's
has
what
a
I do.
super where he just gets armor. And that's not the problem here. The problem is you can win by holding up and jump punch if you know the team you're playing against doesn't have much against that. Guile's flash kick might be fast in this game. However, you're not going to be able to do that against armor.
Because the other thing about this is that Zangief, that armor state is a reference to a hidden character / boss in one of the earlier Marvel vs. Capcom games. It's called Metal. I think it's Metal Zangief.
Oh yeah, they incorporate him in like Street Fighter vs. Tekken 2 as like a background character.
Yeah,
Like literally a
but, like,
metal Zangief.
there was a hidden character that was just Zangief that was really slow, couldn't run or dash, but had armor. And that's basically what that super state does, that
Yep.
install
You can
super
see
does.
that Guile executes a flash kick there, but Zangief is just undisturbed and just keeps jump medium punching.
Because he actually has infinite armor. Because in most games, armor can be broken if you hit them enough. But Zangief has infinite armor, which means he cannot get stunned by a hit at all.
Yep.
Mm.
So imagine yourself at the arcade, Nathan. You're popping in a quarter, you're going to play a game. You've not played this game, and your opponent has played so much more to the fact that, like, he knows all of the moves that he's going to pull against you, what they can do, what's going on with that. How do you feel?
He's not. I mean, obviously, he's having a lot of fun here. He's goofing around,
Right, yes.
having a lark.
Yes.
You might say.
For attention.
But he's not like actively seeking out these sort of cupcake matches, right?
No,
No.
he's just
I thought so.
seeing opportunities in certain players, and then just potentially having a little fun on stream as he's playing.
And it's also
right.
And the matchmaking can be a little iffy.
Right.
Because even Maximilian dude talked to him about it. He's like,
right.
Max is like, I'm getting paired up with people who are like gods at the game, and you're over here going up against Mr. 5 points.
Yeah. Shouts to their podcast, Triple KO, by the way. Not affiliated, but they are really cool.
So the fighting game matchmaking seems to be a little iffy at the moment too.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of everything happening right now. But again, starting from square one, he has to build up his points somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but this has really ultimately resulted in the perfect storm of just like getting people mad on Steam to the point where people are complaining and refunding the game over it, just because they're getting matched up against some of the best players in the world.
And some people know, and some people know that when it comes to fighting games, a good chunk of the game is getting your ass blown up so you can learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
Any competitive game needs to balance their like very high-end audience with their casual audience. Marvel 2 has never been about that due to its age, unfortunately. It's a beautiful game.
Right.
It's a game I love and grew up with. I loved playing it on Dreamcast when I was a kid. But like when you look at it nowadays as a museum piece, it is a little bit ancient.
I mean, I know a couple people for whom like that game was like a high watermark of that style of fighting game.
Yes.
And they still talk about it, glowingly.
The absolute insanity that it is.
Yes, it is a beautiful thing. I love it. It will never be replicated unless like you do a new game. But even that is not the same game, so here we are.
I believe I only ever played it a couple times in the arcade, and it was only because isn't Mega Man a playable character?
Yes,
in
Mega
it?
Man is a playable character. That's correct.
Yeah, and like when that was out, like I was super into like replaying some of the old Mega Man games on emulators. So like I was just like, hey, Mega Man's here. I know that guy. I like that guy. And then
I know that character.
But yeah.
You can also play as Roll.
Yeah.
Oh, can you really?
Yeah.
She is a joke. She is a joke character. You probably don't want to pick her.
I think you would fall into that category of just like not knowing that, though, Nathan. Unfortunately, you would end up picking Roll and get bodied even faster by some players. Not even the highest level of players.
And then too, like in the late '90s, like Marvel was not like. It wasn't as popular. I mean, among comic fans,
popular in a different. I want to go on a tangent about X-Men. Okay, I'm going to do that.
Sure.
X-Men came back. It has a whole new Disney Plus series based on the '80s cartoon. That was what Marvel was back then, and that's what Marvel is to this group of people. It's the soap opera. It's the like whole superhero kind of motif, but it's also about sending a real message to people.
Yeah.
And like that was Marvel. It wasn't the Avengers. It wasn't anything about that. Of course, you have Captain America and like the whole like adventures in the Silver Era and stuff. I'm probably going way too far back. I'm not like a comic historian. Please jump on me for that. But
no, I mean, and that was another thing too. Is just like because I wasn't super into fighting games, and I wasn't super into the Marvel comics. I knew much more about like Superman and Captain Marvel and Batman. Captain Marvel meaning Shazam,
right?
And all that kind of stuff. So like I barely knew who any of them were. I mean, well, I knew who they were, but I just didn't know anything about them. I mean, like, I remember trying to watch the old Spider-Man cartoon that was on Fox,
gosh.
you know? But then, like, every time I would turn it on, it was, like, part 8 of 13, and I was like, nope,
You had to
not
be there
watching
for
this.
the whole series,
like,
yeah.
yeah. So I
People
never
who
got
were
into
into
it.
Marvel were committed.
Yeah.
They had the whole
and you still
television,
have to be
like, timings
committed.
down and everything.
Yeah. And I was
also
not about to do that when at that age. But anyway.
I was going to mention the fact that Marvel wasn't as popular back then is partially why this was able to happen. Why Marvel vs. Capcom was able to be this way was because they kind of got the license for pennies, and they could just go ham. And they could go ham.
It's why Canon Films got the rights to Captain America and Spider-Man, you know, because like they were dirt cheap. Like,
nobody
Fox
expected
wasn't putting out
anything,
that
and
kind
then
of money.
Iron Man came along, and with Disney, and then I mean Marvel took off after Disney bought them from that whole instance.
Yep.
I think part of the fact that like Disney owns the company now, along with Fox, along with the X-Men again, allowed us to have this moment once again in time.
And people thought it wasn't going to happen because of Disney too.
Right.
Because Disney is so the mouse is a mess.
Yeah. Don't you know though, Red? We live in the streaming era now.
Yeah. But they're strangely lenient with their video games. Like they released a whole compilation of like the Disney Afternoon NES Capcom games.
I remember that. Yeah, I love that.
You know?
You own don't you own it?
Don't
you
yes,
own that
on Steam?
Yeah, because I have it from Steam Share.
It
I was like, I saw it, and I was like,
it is classic. We actually ended up watching the Chip and Dale reboot a couple of weeks ago, Nathan.
Oh, that was fun.
It was a really good romp. Yeah, very wild, very crazy.
Good jokes.
A lot of good slapstick. A lot of odd direction, but you know what? It had the Roger Rabbit thing going on there, and I am here for it.
I liked the mixed media of it. It was really fun.
Yes.
Especially with like the claymation inspector, you know.
That was really nice touch,
Voiced by J.K. Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
Fun
Dave
movie.
Johnson, everybody.
Yeah, that's right. But Disney's surprisingly lenient, you know. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's from the Ducktales remastered game.
Yeah, which is also with Capcom's help, the Ducktales remaster became a thing.
Right.
This was done by WayForward, and they got in hot water with Disney because of this like error message.
Oh my god.
So funny.
So give me some more context behind the error message, Ren. I'm not actually in the loop on this.
There's a hidden message in the DuckTales remastered game that's OMG, what the hell is this? It's not supposed to ever appear in normal gameplay, but people found out how to make it appear, and they got in hot water with Disney, and me trying to Google for it is giving me nothing because I'm bad at it. But it's kind of reminding me of Grand Theft Auto and the hot coffee mod.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Just a little bit.
A little R.
PG.
PG to R.
Hot coffee for the Disney audience.
Oh my god.
From G to PG versus rated M to A.
Yeah.
A completely different jump.
That game was. I enjoyed that game. I know I think it had mixed reviews. I guess I don't know, but I liked it fine.
I found it generally pleasant and enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, Alan Young and June Foray both voice act in it, and like their last voice acting roles ever, and they sound it. But hey, you take every bit you can. They're gone now.
Absolutely, it kept it all original. That's what matters here.
Also, to bring it up again, to go back to the DuckTales NES game. The DuckTales cartoon reboot actually used the Moon theme as like
the
an
NES
in-universe
game.
song.
That was a thing in one of the episodes.
Yeah,
I remember that because we had put that episode on for the kids to watch at school during lunch because I think it was like nearing the end of the year and we were just kind of doing stuff casually.
Yeah,
and it's like a lullaby that's sung.
Yeah, it's really
pretty
charming.
dope.
Yeah.
Teaching kids about classic gaming history as well, inadvertently, if they ever look it up. But to bring this whole thing back around to
Yes.
Marvel vs. Capcom and like the whole comics coming to like a close with that.
Mm.
I mean, if you go online, you might get your butt beat by someone who's played the game for 20 years. But if you just want to go play the game, have fun, please do so. You can actually go to your local comic book shop around the October to December timeframe and get yourself a copy of a exclusive cover with some of the key art from the game.
Okay.
This is actually a giveaway that they're doing. Anyone can order these. It's really nice.
I also maintain that a large part of the fighting game experience is getting blown up. It's just
That is fair.
Sure.
if you're serious about fighting games at all, you know this, and you're gonna have to get used to it.
I mean, heck, I would say even casual fighting game people are probably familiar with it. I mean, I am, and I barely
Yes.
play them.
I mostly
People's
get blown
experience
up
with
by the
fighting game
AI.
might just be playing a match against their friend, getting blown up, and never playing again.
Yeah.
More common than you think.
Me against you all the damn time.
Oh, come on. I'm only a Diamond 1 Honda. You can put up with me.
I've only played World Tour mode.
You can put up with me.
Yeah, if I use my custom character.
Oh, yeah, that thing is cheating.
That thing
Well,
is cheating. I have 3 health bars.
So, we have you on the show here, and I just went off 30 minutes because I said that I was going to let you talk here, and I didn't. So, Nathan,
All right.
please introduce us to your journeys during VCF Midwest.
Yes. I went to Vintage Computer Festival Midwest in Schaumburg, Illinois. It's a couple weeks ago now. And I had a great time. It's slowly becoming one of my favorite conventions to attend every year, just because of the stuff you see there is just not stuff I would see anywhere else. You know, and I live very close to the Strong Museum, so I get to see a lot of cool stuff often, and rare things too. But
I do remember talking about my escapades during the symposium last episode. I went over them very quickly, though. If there's anything you wanted to touch on from that, feel free.
So first, then let's it's been like a month since Save the Games, right?
Yes, it's been around a month here.
It's been about a month. I mean, the thing I love most about Save the Games was just the conversations I got to have with very cool people. Very smart people. Got to listen to a lot of talks from very intelligent folks. Took copious notes. I hope to do something with those notes at some point. I was going to say my notebook's in the other room. I've been trying to teach myself assembly, and so I've been doing notes and stuff.
Oh wow,
there.
That's a journey.
It makes more sense to me than like C++ or whatever.
Interesting. Go and remake Roller Coaster Tycoon.
I've written C++ for my badge program. I was making like a convention badge on like LVGL and ESP32.
Yeah,
Tangents on tangents. How dare I?
Yeah, sorry. I did I did Java in high school, and I really struggled with it. But but I just started doing 6502 and Z80 assembly, and I have another computer that I'll talk about a little bit later that I started learning that on. But
all right.
Yeah, it makes so much more sense to me than Java ever did.
Gotcha.
Amazing.
Yeah, but I think it's because of all my work with hardware logic.
I think that would do it.
I think that would do it for you. Yeah. We love all kinds of programmers here on the Reddmasq Podcast.
Yeah. Load into the accumulator this podcast. That's an assembly joke for everybody, for all 2 of you out there.
Java has those too, but I have not implemented those, so just don't fault it.
Yeah, my notebook's over there, but yeah, that was very fascinating. I especially love what he had to say about, you know, how we can denigrate the work of these perceived pirates, right? These people who are cloning these machines and making sort of these admittedly a bit wonky video games for it with wonky designs or whatever.
It was Ian Larson, PhD, Save the Clones, the growing imperative to archive bootleg and clone video game consoles.
And something that he made a point of, we do see these things as sort of cheap and wonky or whatever, but that doesn't mean that people didn't put very hard work into it, into making them happen. And it's important not to denigrate that labor,
Of course.
by people who had significantly less resources than you or I might have, for instance, here in the States. And it put a very fresh perspective on the topic for me, the way that he spoke about it, and just trying to find the people who did anything relating to this. I also thought his offshoot talk about the workarounds to get video games to be kosher in China, because the Chinese government wasn't too keen on video games. It kind of saw them as time wasters,
Right.
and brain rotters. So
Even
you
Nintendo
kind of
had
work around
pushback.
that.
Even
Yeah,
Nintendo had
but-
pushback trying to get like the
Yeah.
IQ and like other consoles
Yes.
kind of greenlit over there.
Yes. So you get around that by like marketing it as a educational tool, or even in some cases like a computer.
The NVIDIA
Um,
Shield in a later
yeah,
instance,
right.
if you've heard about that one.
Sure. That sounds familiar.
The NVIDIA
But
Shield was the only way you could play Twilight Princess over in China. They
Weird.
actually have a native port for it.
Wild.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I'll link you the
That's
document for
crazy.
that if you're interested.
Please. That sounds fascinating. Yeah. It was just great stuff to Save the Games. Got to take a cool tour into the back rooms. I always love getting to do that. I got to do it once before. But we got to do it again, and they took me into the basement, and I got to see these like 1940s, 1930s electromechanical arcade games, which I was just like, it blew my mind. Getting to see like a Sega gunfight machine, which is, if you know the game, like Gunfight, like, that 70s arcade game. This is sort of like a mechanical version of that Sega made in the 60s, and they have one, and it's so super cool. Also got to see the set for the 1970s version of Family Feud.
Yeah, that was
because
pretty fun.
They had that.
I was actually going back and forth on Discord with one of my friends who's a big game show buff.
Yeah.
He's actually keeping track of like when the exhibit's going to go live, which is why I made a point on my segment last episode to say it was the Fast Money board. They didn't actually say that at the museum, but that's what the board's actually called.
Huh.
Yep.
How about that?
The
It's pretty
finale.
Cool. It's a magnet dot matrix. So, what I mean by that sign, the big one where, you'd have like the survey says results. It's a flip dot. That's what you call it, flip dot.
Flip dot matrix.
So it's not it's mechanical. There's no lights. It's just there's a black side and a yellow side, and a magnet will flip between the two. It's pretty cool to see in person and to hear it too, because you can hear it go click 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 click, click as it changes.
It also has that iconic look to it that I always love.
Yeah, it's super cool. But yeah, lots of cool things that Save the Games. I honestly, the only thing, I really had very little complaints. The only complaint I had was I would love to have had a little bit more time to spend exploring the museum with folks.
I agree. Yes.
But other than that, it was. But that's honestly a nitpick, because it was quite amazing how they were able to bring so many people to this one event from pretty much. I mean, there were people from around the world represented.
Right. It was a global event with the partnership with Replaying Japan, and a lot of representation from Japanese video game developers, and it was very much well appreciated. One of the things I said for feedback is that I think they should have translators more readily available for this audience and for anyone who might need them. Also, events should be recorded for future events. Yeah.
They did have translators at Replaying Japan.
They did,
They did.
I would assume that was the case, but our event seemed a little woefully underprepared for this sort of scale.
But it's the first time they ever did it,
right.
And for the first time, I'd say that is a smashing success.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So if that's as good as they do on their first try, I can only imagine what subsequent ones look like. But yeah, I actually did get to go to one of the Replaying Japan ones, because it's only 15 minutes away. It was
Right,
at
from you, it'd
University
be
of
a little bit
Buffalo.
closer here.
I was
I
15
actually
minutes
missed that.
away. So I went on a lunch break. I took a long lunch and went down to go see a talk about Space Harrier and about the development of menu systems in Japanese RPGs.
Very nice.
A couple of cool talks. Yeah.
Can I ask? There was a Yakuza talk about there with
I was
just
not
how
there.
presentation happened. We can't talk about hot coffee again. God dang it!
Yeah. Yeah. I was not. I only went to the one session just because I had to work.
All right, no worries.
Yeah, but that is something. So I know a little about the fighting game community. I know literally nothing about the Yakuza series.
Gotcha.
Literally nothing.
Well, Red will have a segment on that later, so we're gonna have fun there.
Educate me. But so anyway, that was Save the Games. But VCF, there was just so much cool stuff there. There was somebody every year. Somebody brings a set of like analog relay switches for telephones. And they string like these mini telephone poles around the convention hall and connect real dial telephones to them that work.
So it's just a POTS system that they just distribute through the event?
It's a what now?
Plain old telephone system, POTS.
Yeah, right. Plain old telephone. Yeah. And you can see the relays working, in real time. So you could take a look at it as you call people, and you could just dial 450 to call the phone that's on this table, and you do it, and somebody will pick up and be like, "Hey, what's up?" And you just talk for a minute.
Question. I got a hacker question for you. Can I blow my Captain Crunch whistle in there and get a 2600 baud signal for a free call?
You didn't have to pay, but if you did, that might have worked. That might have worked.
I love it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just a side thing. Yeah, it's beautiful that we have people that actually have the know-how to implement such a thing in a weekend.
It's so cool. You could call someone on a Kermit the Frog telephone. It was great. There was another one. They called it, their table had the label of generic cable. And what they had done is so much like there was this analog telephone system going throughout the convention center, someone had also set up an analog cable television system.
Really?
That you could connect to, and including having an old wood grain, tube television.
Love it. With the knob?
One of those, with those old cable boxes sitting on top of it. Like with the red LED readouts.
Okay.
And so you could flip through channels on the cable box, and there would be like one that was like drone footage of landscapes, and one that was several weather channels, because they had actual weather channel Macintosh computers there running the software to do a real weather channel. And they also had ones that were like those old text information channels that would like tell you about when the JV football game is or something like that.
I mean, you gotta have a TV guide in some form.
Right. And there was a preview channel using the software for the preview channel. And, one was for old cartoons and one was for old TV commercials. And of course, these are all hooked up through like analog agile modulators. So they can sort of you put an input into it, you put a audio video input, and then it specifically broadcasts it on like channel 10 or something like that.
Okay.
And you sort of chain these together so you get you get a cable system. So that was really cool. Let's see. Yeah, there's so many like custom computers too.
When you say custom computers, like how far back do these date? Are they just restorations, or are they people literally building with like chips, like their own computers, like Apple One style? Yes, that. Oh wow.
So people will take there's one that's like based off of the 6502's 16-bit successor, which I think is like
65C816 or 65816.
One of those.
Maybe.
Yeah. But so there's one where somebody had made a computer around that processor, called the Phoenix with an F, Phoenix 256, which because it has 256K of memory, that you could build. There was one called Otter X, you know. You could also purchase kits for these things. Like you could build an Altair 8800 simulator, you know, using an Arduino.
Yes.
Yeah. Or you could build they had Apple One kits there, and you could just
right if you wanted
the
to
6502 and the RAM and all that stuff.
Have the authentic
which I've
experience
done.
of
It's fun.
building your own computer. Sorry.
Yeah, I have done that. It's fun to do that.
I would love to someday. Can you talk a little bit about the Cosmac display? Because from what it looks like here, from what I've looked like, words. From what it looks like here, from what I've looked at related to just the Cosmac Elf and like things where people are building their own like whole integrated systems in this sort of sense.
Yeah.
Like this is like what small embedded IoT computers were back in the 80s to me. I have experience like building my own badges and chips and just various light boards and light strips with the ESP series. So like the C3, C6, S3, 32, 8266. I've tinkered with all of these at some point here, got my own stuff working on it. But back then, like, things were a lot bigger and chunkier from what it looks like.
Right. And I mean, those things changed pretty quickly. But yeah, the Cosmac, it's the 1802 processor. It was developed by Joe Weisbecker in the early 70s.
Okay.
It started out as a project he called Fred. I don't remember what the full thing is, but he built it in like 72, and it was this whole like he wanted to make computers friendly for people. That was one of the letters in the acronym.
Right.
Was friendly. And so he made this with the idea that it would be easy to use, easy to put together, and required minimal parts to get an operating system going. You know, something like a Z80 might take a bit to really like get to be to a useful state. And honestly, like the 1802 wasn't that robust, and it has some very odd quirks, like in how it addresses memory. It addresses the high and low bits of memory of the memory address on alternating clock cycles, which is very weird. But it works. And in fact, actually, you know, I mean, most beginner systems do it so that way you only have to worry about that first clock cycle instead of bouncing between the two. So you only have 256 bytes of memory, but still, it's something. But
are you limited by like your processor itself? Does the I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with like 6502 programming, as I'm not really sure where to begin with that sort of thing.
It's not quite as robust, and it doesn't work quite as quickly. It's a bit slower, but it's incredibly resilient. So much. You
don't have the modern luxury of like multi-core threading or anything like that.
Oh heavens, no!
You've got nothing. You've got very few resources to actually rely on for this. Most of my studies involve like RISC-based systems, so like RISC-V.
Yeah, no.
Is a lot of the chips I work on. You have none of those luxuries.
Absolutely none.
Oh my gosh!
If you want to do that, you could buy another processor.
Oh, I'd be so lost. Oh my god.
Yeah. But yeah, people got it working, and it was very popular with I say very popular with you know, the hobby electronics scene of the mid 70s. And I say very popular, really, I mean, you know, these things weren't selling like Apple II numbers or anything, but with a certain kind of hobbyist, you know, it was a lot of fun to build it, put it together. The instruction set was very simple, was very straightforward. And you could also, I don't know if you're familiar with the Chip 8 programming set.
I am not.
Okay. It was something very early, sort of with the same intention of BASIC, right? To make very simple, easy to understand programming for everybody. And Joe Weisbecker did it with the intention so that people could make games. It was intentionally done for people to make games on it. And it was very simple. The main video system used with the 1802 is called the Pixie graphics system, and it had a very chunky black and white display. I'm trying to think of what the resolution is, but it's low. It's like 160 by 120 or something. So it's not much at all. But yeah, it's but it's I don't know, it has a very DIY spirit to it all. It makes it very appealing to tinker with. In fact, at the last show, I bought a couple 1802 processors just because they had them and they were like $5 a piece. So I was like, well, I'll buy two.
Yeah, give it a shot sometime.
Yeah, and I'm currently in the middle of hand wiring an 1802 computer. It's kind of stalled out as other projects have kind of come along and whatever, but I'm getting there. I even did a thing where I made a because you need so the main data readout on these computers is it's just 2 digits. That's all you have.
All you have is just the 2 digits on like a display board that's like attached to the actual like device you're programming. You don't actually have the display to work with. You're just kind of like trial and error debugging it with that, or?
Well, yeah. Well, what you do is you just step through the memory addresses. So you can see through the memory address, and it'll show you the data that's at that memory address.
Right. So, like this board that I'm looking at on this page, like the whole Cosmic Elf system, you have that memory address, the 5E here. Yeah.
5E is the byte that is in the data address that you're at right now.
At this moment, yes, that makes sense. Which
would be, so 6. I can't translate binary in my head, but so 5E, that's your data, and it's in hexadecimal, of course. But most LED drivers for like a 7-segment display, they don't do hex anymore. So they only do digital. So I had to kind of like figure out like I could buy like chips that are capable of doing hex characters on a 7-segment display, but they're like $30 a piece. That's so much money. What if though I have all these leftover logic ICs from these other projects? What if I just made up a circuit that took the data bits in binary, multiplexed them into the right configure, and then pulled out the EEPROM, the character displays from an EEPROM.
Are you making a logic gate? Like with hardware?
I did. And and I made 2 3x5 LED readouts so that display the hex values, and it worked.
Beautiful.
It's over engineered and kind of silly, but it works.
Very nice.
I wish I could send you a photo right now, but it's from like last year.
Feel free to do so after the show.
I will, because I'm very proud of it, even if it does look a little janky.
Absolutely.
But anyways, so yeah,
I try to keep that interesting.
Really neat.
It's still an area I'm a little like out of my depth in. I still love going to VCFs and places for like the indie classic, where I could just have conversations with a lot of these people working on like systems like the Altair 8800s and things, and just like seeing what people could come up with in order to just like pre-program those. Because the last person I had on the episode we went there was a robot arm this person used with that, but they were also working with like a PDP-11 type system, like as a side project. And like the type of main RAM that they were working with there is actually extremely
magnetic core
FE RAM, actually.
Yeah.
It's unstable as hell.
Yeah.
It just randomly flips its own bits, so it's just like, why would you torture yourself like this?
There's
something just beautiful, like hearing about these sorts of like weird and digital worlds people kind of like delve into. I have a lot of fun with that.
There's just something that drives us, like I don't really know what it is. I couldn't explain it to you. It doesn't make any sense. Like, this stuff is obsolete and it serves no real purpose, but there's something about, I don't know. There's just something that tickles our brains that makes us compels us to do these things. But, but I would look, if you're interested in learning more about the 1802, I would definitely recommend, there's a YouTube series called Atari Archive by Kevin Bunch. He's been working on writing a book about RCA because the 1802 was Joe Weisbecker worked for RCA, so
Right.
the development went through him and through that company. And Kevin Bunch is working on a book about RCA's sort of failed attempt to get in the computer and video game business. And he has a video on the RCA Studio 2, which was, it used the 1802 processor. It's very unimpressive. Especially like even in 1977 when it came out, it was unimpressive. Because the Atari 2600 was out at that time and could do color, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
But the RCA Studio 2 was originally planned for like 75, and if it had happened then, it might have caught on a little more. But it's a very interesting look at that processor and what it can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the era, there were a lot of computers that could not launch around like the 80s in terms of just like personal home computing. There's a Texas Instrument computer that suffered a similar fate of trying to bring it to the market. Yes, that is a very famous one, yeah.
They got caught up in a price war with Commodore.
Yep, and they just kept getting undercut each and every time.
They could not keep up with the Commodore.
No,
the Commodore was keeping up with you.
It's catching on your heels. Quick, run.
This episode is brought to you by us. We work hard in making an exciting show each week, chaos included. Check out the links in the show notes for ways to help support the show. This includes our coffee page, which you can find at ko-fi.com/mask31.
Yeah, we got a lot of different ideas from that. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to kind of talk about from VCF Midwest here that kind of stuck out to you?
Sure. One more thing.
Sure.
My son, I took him on Sunday. I went by myself on Saturday, spent a lot of time there until.
All right.
I took my kid on Sunday. We had a good time. He learned how to solder because they had a learn how to solder station there.
That's good.
Oh my God.
That's cool.
And he made a little badge with like RGB lights around it that you kind of witness. It's super
His
cool.
first hacker badge.
Yeah, and
precious.
he was extremely proud of it. Carries it with him everywhere. But he also had $40 to spend, and he chose. I did not tell him anything. I just said, whatever speaks to you, that's what I want you to get. I'm not going to coach you on anything. Like, this is all up to you. He chose to buy a Windows 98 PC. With his $40.
Oh my God, that was actually the first computer that I've ever had. A desktop tower that my uncle had sent me after hearing about Microsoft Windows. So he bought me a Windows 98 computer. My mom had it, and we played the Blues Clues and Rugrats game together when I was 5 years old.
I think that was our first like modern PC after we had like a I don't know what it would be called, but it would be like I don't know the name for it, but it's like a PC where like all you had was like the menu and it was all like green and black.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had a Tandy 1000. That was my family's first PC.
Okay, Tandy's pretty good.
That my dad bought in '84. Yeah, maxed out the memory at 640K.
Oh, lovely.
He had a full color monitor, and he got 2 floppy disk drives with it. But not a hard drive. The hard drive was ostentatious. That was a little bit too much.
You would be lucky with the tape drive back then.
Yeah, but he had 2 floppy drives. So he was just like, he was like, I'll never have to buy another computer again. And he was like,
boy, let me take you back to the future here.
Yeah, but I will say that was our family computer for 9 years. So he absolutely got his money out of it. Before he finally broke down and bought a 486.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That was their second computer. It was a 25 megahertz 486. Yeah. He got a Windows 98 PC. And,
what brand was it? Out of curiosity.
I don't remember. Some no-name brand.
Oh, not a Gateway?
No, it wasn't a Gateway. I wouldn't
that's
have let
a no-name brand that got a name.
Yeah. No, he got something.
Okay, really side thing, really random thing, by the way. But there's still this side in Henrietta that's just like right next to that plaza we were talking about before the show.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It said Gateway Country on it. I still want it.
Yeah.
I still want that sign. It's still up.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
They haven't taken it down in years. I want that sign.
Oh, that's so funny.
I would hang it on my wall.
Oh my God. Gateway's not even really a company anymore, right? Like, they're
They
gone.
are, but they're kind of a shell of their former self.
Okay.
They make
So they're
computers,
sort of like
but they're
Commodore.
not really notable. I think
So they like license out the brand, basically.
kind of like a Nokia sort of. Actually, Nokia was brought back by its original owners.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Acer revived it. Yeah, Acer brought the product.
Okay. But yeah, that was VCF Midwest, and that show is great. It's quickly climbing up to be one of my favorites, and I can't wait for the next one.
Glad you had a great time there. Red, we need to go to more vintage
did.
computer shows. Right after
Clearly.
we go to the, what is it? The Retro Game Con in Syracuse.
Oh, I'm going to that. You guys are going to
that'd
that?
be cool. I wish. But thank you
You do
for
what you gotta
continuing
do.
to be on the show here. We want to get
Of
through one more
course.
segment with Red.
Yeah.
Red, we're going to spring the trap on our friend Nathan here. Let's talk
God.
about pirates and Yakuza.
Yakuza,
boy.
Like a Dragon. Well, they've finally taken to naming the series Like a Dragon, as it is in Japan.
Yes.
I find it really funny how they did it, because they named the 7th game Yakuza Like a Dragon as they switched the protagonist. And now the series is just called Like a Dragon, with Yakuza being like in the background somewhere.
Mhm.
Anyways, the new Pirate Majima game,
Yes.
from what I've seen, from what I understand, it is set 6 months after Infinite Wealth. And you play as Majima, who is somehow washed up on a beach and lost his memories. And he becomes a pirate by virtue of beating a captain that's trying to like take over an island. He winds up becoming a pirate captain of his own and starts to do that nonsense. And the gameplay is back to beat 'em up, but it looks like Dynasty Warriors too, where you've got like wide sweeping attacks taking on a whole army with one dude.
Right, so RPG elements are gone? Or are they just kind of taking a back seat here?
To be fair, Yakuza as a series has always had like some degree of grinding or RPG elements, where you have like equipment, you have like resources to use, and you also have like leveling up to do, where you have skills you need to unlock through various means, etc., etc., etc. So it's always had that like background RPG element. But the previous two games, Like a Dragon and Infinite Wealth, were very directly just turn-based JRPG goodness. And those are the ones that I've played, because I've never touched the others. I am not used to any of the beat-em-ups yet.
So,
But-
doesn't this series take place in like modern times?
Yes.
And he
Sort
becomes-
of.
A pirate.
Yes.
Yes.
Listen.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
All right.
To be fair,
Okay,
and
all
in
right.
Infinite Wealth, you do deal with pirates in one of the mini games, which is just like you run an island and you have to like make it tourist friendly. And
Interesting.
your
So-
your enemies are these pirates called they're called the Washbucklers, because they dump their trash everywhere.
Oh,
And so they're like the bad guy for this mini game, and you're like taking them out with your own bat. It's really funny.
Okay, Nathan, just to kind of level with you, this is a Sega game, to be clear.
uh-huh.
So they sacrifice none of the zany elements that their kind of series legacies have kind of laid out for them. This is like what you would get if we talked about this on like the early episodes of the podcast, what the Yakuza series really means and how it can take both serious and silly topics and kind of throw them in a blender and make them work. Because you'll have arcade style gameplay alongside very story-driven AAA narrative.
Yeah, it's literally like
it works.
the main story has like funny moments, but it's a lot more serious and heartfelt. And then the side stories range anywhere from complete nonsense to being heartfelt. And it's honestly kind of amazing, because there's also sub games too, where you can have your adult character get completely obsessed with what's it called? Stock car racing, right? Where you have
Yes.
like like that, and then you have like go karting in a 7, and there's also like, because it's a Sega game, they wind up taking their old games and emulating them in the game
In the
for you to play
arcades,
as well.
I have
And
seen
then-
clips of that. Like people
Yes.
like running like Space Harrier in
Or
them
Spike
Out.
something.
Spike Out was in Infinite Wealth.
And we played that together for a little bit, and then we realized how we gave up once we realized how long it would take for us to do a full run. You're like, nope, too much time. Let's play something else.
A little bit repetitive, but it was good fun.
It was fun for
Okay.
what we got through.
Okay, so I just got sent a picture here in the chat.
Okay, yeah,
of
I want to explain what I just sent you.
What our pirate guy looks like. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
Majima.
going to be facetious and say, "Oh, what is he wearing? Like an eye patch and like a captain's hat?" And I wasn't going to do that because I was like, "That's rude," you know. But you send me a
So-
picture, and that's exactly what it is.
It's exactly
You know what's-
what you think
no.
it is.
Here's what's funny about the eye patch, though. He's not wearing that eye patch because he's a pirate. He literally just lost an eye as his Yakuza job has led him to do. So he just wears an
goodness.
eye patch normally because he doesn't have that eye.
Boy, oh boy.
So
So it's a part he was born to play, baby.
Yeah, this world's
Yeah.
a little bit crazy if you haven't heard by now. It's in fact, in that article I linked, so crazy that people had ended up leaking this game and nobody believed them.
because it was so ridiculous.
I love it. Oh man.
So,
should I
so-
play Yakuza?
I'd recommend it. It's pretty
Yeah.
fun.
Okay.
If
Where would he start, though? Where would Nathan start if he were to just pick up a game here? Would he start with Zero?
Oh God.
Yakuza
Oh,
Zero,
God.
maybe?
My problem with this is I haven't played anything but the JRPGs.
Right.
So
I would
it's like,
say you should start with Yakuza 0, or you would start with the first Like a Dragon, depending on what type of video game you want to play. Do you
I
want to
will
play
say-
an RPG, or do you want to play a beat 'em up?
I do want to say that Infinite Wealth has a nice little, like, because you're playing as two different protagonists, the original protagonist and the new one, you wind up doing reminiscing with the original protagonist, which can lead you to, like, looking those things up as you learn them. And
Right.
it can lead to, like, that's a good starting point just because it gives you all these, like, connections to past games that you can look into.
Precisely.
But yeah, like the JRPG style is completely new for this, so it's like depending on what you
Yeah.
want to play, a beat 'em up or a JRPG, you have to like choose one.
Well,
And-
I mean, if you don't
both.
like one, you could try the other one too.
Yeah.
And
I like beat 'em
Infinite
ups.
Wel-
I like JRPGs.
I would say
I also
Infinite
like
Wealth is.
River City Ransom, which is kind of like
Oh
both.
my god!
Yeah.
Yo,
Oh, yeah, Fred's a big fan of
Yeah.
RCR
yo,
and Kunio
It's a great
games.
game. It's a great game.
hell yeah! I've played
Yeah.
River City Girls 1 and 2 still. I have yet to.
I-
We need to play River City Girls 2 when they release the DLC for it.
Oh yeah, the Game Grumps DLC.
The Game Grumps. Oh god, fuck, Double Dragon DLC. Yeah.
I'm
was trying
sorry
to
we're
remember the name
talking
of the
over you so
character.
much, Nathan, but like,
Yeah, no, it's fine, totally fine. I've never played River City Girls. I guess I should do that. Is it
It's
on
very
Switch?
similar. It's on Switch. Both games are on Switch,
Okay.
actually,
Good.
if you want to play them.
Yeah, because that's the easiest way for me to play video games these days. Is
Yep.
just because
portables.
it's and I don't
Yeah.
have to monopolize a television.
Yeah.
or sit like at my computer like tucked away from everybody else.
So something I want to talk about with the new Yakuza game. It's taking place 6 months after the Infinite Wealth, and we learned during Infinite Wealth's story that Majima is also getting up in the years alongside our original protagonist, because Majima and the original protagonist Kiryu, like, they were rivals almost, to the point that Majima is like kind of obsessed with Kiryu. It's really funny and cute in a weird way. We fought Majima at one point, and he is getting older, and he shows that age a little bit. So I'm curious how that's gonna like come into the story of this game,
right?
because Infinite Wealth has a large theme about like Kiryu passing off the legacy to the new protagonist, Ichiban. So it's like, I'm curious about how Majima is going to handle with his age catching up to him.
Do you think that the story is going to have the players encounter Ichiban and his crew in Hawaii at some point?
Maybe. There's a chance, but it is taking place 6 months afterwards, so they might not even be there anymore. You might run into the party members who are from Hawaii, potentially, but...
Gotcha.
I wouldn't be able to say for sure, because a time skip means that people have moved from place to place.
Right, you won't be able to see old friends there, so it's going to be mostly a self-contained package.
And I want to say I really like that the 2 combat styles they've given him are his original style of Mad Dog, because he's known as the Mad Dog of, I don't remember the name of the damn town he's from, but he's the Mad Dog of that city. So you have Mad Dog style and Sea Dog style, which is just like, I can't read that.
I thought you could read some Japanese.
I can't read kanji, that's for sure.
Ah.
Kanji is like a whole difficulty level up. Shimano's Mad Dog, so the Mad Dog of Shimano. Yeah.
Yeah.
So his C style being called Sea Dog is just a funny pun. I like it.
Gotcha.
But like if you watch the gameplay, it obviously it looks like it controls differently from even the old beat 'em up Yakuza games, because it's got that Dynasty Warrior flavor of you are fighting a bunch of people and you are able to hit a bunch of people as well as one person.
Giant horde fight.
Yeah, and like Yakuza beat 'em up is usually just like a small group of enemies that you take on one by one and have to do a little bit of crowd control so they don't like gang up on you, like a basic beat 'em up. So I'm really looking forward to getting more information on this. So it's like, based off what we know now, I have nothing else to say.
Did you see the minigames though?
I did see the minigames. I'm happy they're bringing back Dragon Card because that was a fun one from 7.
I'm not familiar with that. I've seen enough Crazy Delivery when you've played, though.
Oh yeah, Crazy Delivery is back. That's Crazy Taxi, but you're Uber Eats.
DoorDash, yeah.
you're playing Crazy Taxi, but you're door dashing instead. But Dragon Kart is just like Mario Kart, where you have like, it's kind of like Mario Kart. It's not quite as crazy because it still has to be like kind of grounded in reality. But it's like a mixture of like your basic arcade racer and Mario Kart, where you have like items, you have drifting, you have like you're doing go-karts through like various locales. It's basic. It's pretty basic, but it is really fun. And it was in 7, it was run by the person who did the pocket circuit, so the stock car racing. And like at the very end of that mini game, he revealed himself and challenged you to a race. It was like, hell yeah.
Snap.
It's like, oh shit, it's the pocket circuit fighter. Let's go.
So is Dragon Kart just literally like riffing off Mario Kart?
Literally, yes.
Oh my god. Just like the Pokemon ripoff they had in Infinite Wealth.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, the Pokemon minigame in Infinite Wealth is hilarious.
Yeah.
Because the Pokemon ripoff in 7 was just like, you had a Pokedex and you had to find them all and beat them all up because it was just a dex of it was a Pokedex of all the enemies you fought, and if you found all of them, you could turn in your Pokedex and fight the professor.
Yes.
And then
This sounds wild.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, and then it is wild. And then Infinite Wealth takes it up a notch by letting you actually like recruit these enemies to your side for your team, and then you can have them battle in like these weird 3v3 fights, as well as like put them to work on your island for resources and training. It's very silly. Like I said,
to go outside my usual bubble of just like influence with this, it's clear that Nintendo and Sega are friends at this point. Otherwise, they might have ended up in a Palworld situation where one of the companies goes and sues the other for that kind of gameplay or parody, for that matter.
I am upset that
exists, so you can't get them on trademark. You can only get them on patent.
I'm upset that it's a patent one because video game patents are really dumb more often than not.
And it's already litigated. It was litigated in the 80s. Like they already did it. You can't
in the
patent
United
gameplay.
States maybe, but maybe not in Japan.
Maybe not in Japan, but in
Japan
United,
copyright do be a little weirder.
Yes, well, and draconian, I would say.
A little bit, yeah.
Copyright is oppressive.
Shoutouts to all the VTubers I watched play Henry Stickmin, and every time the first time the references popped up, they were just like, "Is this okay? Am I allowed to be streaming this? What's happening?"
You're familiar with Henry Stickmin, right, Nathan?
No, I am not.
Okay, the developer for Inner Sloth, the developer for Among Us, they made Flash games,
right,
back in the 2000s, and that's where that came from.
Sure.
Henry Stickmin was like your basic like point and click. Like you run into a situation, you choose one of the options, you see what happens.
Oh,
sure. It's going to be funny, it's going to be referential. You're going to see failures. Like the achievements often include seeing all the failures because it's funny and there's references. But also like you're supposed to like find the endings as well. So
this and so much more is all protected under fair use in the United States.
In the United States, yes.
So seeing Japanese people play this heavily referential humor game and them immediately just going like, "Is this okay?" Like I'm seeing a Fire Emblem thing on my screen right now. I can't be saying Fire Emblem. It's something emblem. Sorry.
Yeah. Japanese copyright is very they're very, very strict.
Very protective for sure.
Very protective.
And it does speak volumes that Yakuza can get away with this sort of thing when other franchises cannot.
Yeah.
Especially in the independent space.
And those mini games do help illustrate the point that Yakuza has like everything from absolute ridiculous bullshit to serious, like heartwarming moments that are sad, or you are like fighting for something important. The main story is where most of that is, but some sub stories do get into that, like you satisfy the dying wish of a person's wife, and that's really heartwarming. What's really funny about that, though, is that the people who help you with that are the adult baby Yakuza.
What?
The what?
I'm not going to say the adult baby Yakuza, which is a recurring character from another Yakuza game.
Oh boy.
I'm going to say it again.
It is
the what?
The adult baby Yakuza. It's a family it's a Yakuza family where they're all. It's absurd. Like I'm saying it as best I can. They are adult babies. They are grown men in diapers acting like babies, and you often wind up butting heads with them because of like bad communication.
Only the most extreme topics for the Reddmasq Podcast, everyone.
This is what Yakuza can become if you let it. And the fact that those guys have one of the most heartwarming sub-stories in the series is fucking amazing.
It's you know, like we keep saying that it's silly, you know, but it's also incredibly ambitious to put a whole like Pokemon homage in your like ostensibly you know, crime family sim game. That's nuts. That's so much work. That's so much extra work.
And it's not even like you barely do any like actual crime stuff. It's more or less just like the background that's happening with it.
Right.
The most crime you're going to get involved in is constantly getting assaulted and fighting back against a bunch of other assholes.
It's not glorifying violence like a Grand Theft Auto might do, but it is still one of the most popular video game franchises in Japan.
Yeah, the game has always had random encounters, so it's like, or like encounters you see on the street that are random, and then they try to fight you, stuff like that. So even in the beat 'em ups, it's like you run into it's like an RPG encounter where they run up to you, and then you start your beat 'em up fight, put them down, continue on your day.
Wow.
Just pretend it's Dragon Quest. It'll be fine.
But the beat 'em ups are, yeah. I mean that's literally how the RPG mechanics work in 7 and 8. Is that our main character loves Dragon Quest, so his overactive imagination starts imagining that his life is now a JRPG.
Oh my gosh!
Love it.
And then everyone just winds up getting dragged into it to the point that the original protagonist in 8 comes in infinite wealth and winds up getting that overactive imagination. He sees it too, and he's just like, "What the fuck?"
That is, wow.
All right,
that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, that is definitely a lot to get introduced to the Yakuza franchise on. And
If
with
you-
this new DLC here, I guess they'll just keep continuing the antics. So,
Yeah.
Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is definitely going to be a treat. We'll definitely
I
bring you
know-
more if Red has more to say and play about it.
I know what I said sounds like a lot, but if you just pick up one of the games and start playing it, it will be a lot easier to digest because it won't be throwing it all at this bullshit at you at once.
No. It sounds like one of those things where you just open it up and you say, "Hey, what do you got for me today?" And you just
Don't
roll.
think.
What do you
with it.
got?
Just act.
Oh, I'm butting heads with an adult baby Yakuza? Why not? I have a really dumb question to ask you before you leave as a reference to our previous guest. Puzzle Bobble or Bust a Move?
As like a name?
Video game. Taito games. Have you heard of them?
The Taito games? Yeah, I know Bust a Move.
Oh, there you go. There's your answer, right?
Yeah.
He's Bust a Move. Got it.
I'm Bust a Move. Yeah.
I broke
Puzzle
her
Bobble's fine, I guess. It's not as fun though as Bust a Move.
I agree.
It does make it clear. It mostly makes it clear that it's a Bubble Bobble thing.
Yeah, but
That's
like, but I hear Puzzle Bobble, I'm like, oh, cool, Bobble. I love. Oh, this isn't Bubble Bobble. Like it's just setting me up for disappointment.
Is Bubble Bobble even Bubble Bobble anymore? That's the question.
I see Bub and Bob, but there's no bulls.
Oh my god! There's two dragons on the screen. What do they have to do with anything?
Is Parasol Stars? That's it, right? Yeah, Parasol Stars. That's a Bubble Bobble sequel.
Oh my god! Rainbow Islands too.
Yeah,
Rainbow Islands.
Too.
Yeah.
The Bubble Bobble series is a little too complicated.
So off the wall.
It is so complicated.
I don't know.
It kind of shocks me that for their VR game they didn't actually like rename it to something else. It's just like another Puzzle Bobble game.
Taito kind of lost their way in the 90s a little bit.
I think they still lost their way.
Yeah.
I had a rough time of it.
We're going to wrap it up, by the way. We're pretty much at the end of this. Nathan, thank you for being here with us today. How can the lovely people find you online if they're interested in hearing more?
Well, first of all, thank you so very much for having me on. It has been an absolute pleasure.
The pleasure is mine.
I've enjoyed everything that we talked about, even the things I knew nothing about, like Yakuza. Still had fun talking and asking questions.
Very good.
But yeah, you can find me. You can take a look at my website, of course, and my podcast. It's the Memory Machine Podcast, and it's memorymachinepod.com. You can follow me on Blue Sky. Let me look up what my actual username is here. It's at Nathaniel with an IEL at Nathaniel Lockhart, HART Lockhart .bisky.social. I'm sure you'll put a proper link in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I am on Twitter, I guess, but I don't go on there as much because I hate it. And you can follow me on Instagram at nathaniel.lockhart. I post pictures of stuff there sometimes.
Pictures of vintage computers or some of your builds?
Yeah, or like repairs I've made. Like I just repaired a TRS-80 Model 1.
Oh, very cool.
I might put some pictures up of that.
Let me just tell you, that's not trash.
No, it's not. It's just it's just finicky.
All right.
It's kind of, and I'm also on Mastodon. Nathaniel Lockhart at fostodon.org.
Awesome.
So,
great to see some Mastodon representation.
Yeah. I don't use it as much, but yeah.
Gotcha.
It's there.
Before you go, I just want to say, I'm so happy to know that not only is your nickname the same as mine, but the way you spell the full name is also the same.
Hell yeah. IEL.
IEL.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We are hosted on mask31.dev/the-Reddmasq-podcast. You can also find us on Pocket Casts and wherever great podcasts are found.